So this episode of Tools of the Trade, we're going to go over some basic bike repairs, cover some really basic stuff, just basically bringing your bike out for the season, and also, of course, some tools that I really think you should probably invest into. They're not going to cost too much, maybe around $100. Honestly, you probably even have some lying around. Stay tuned. So first thing that I recommend are at least one good drill. Now, I go cordless because I do this for a living. I build bikes, I make sure everything's all working. So I actually do have two very good drills, and they are actually cordless with removable batteries. This guy, for example, I can also remove the head and attach many different peripherals to it if need be. So far I just have the drill and the sander for more personal use at home. In here we have various different bits. Now as far as bikes go, you're only going to really need one bit. And that is, give me 1 second. That would be this guy over here. Now you can't really see it in the camera, but this bit is what's known as a PH2. So basically that is the size, and it fits into pretty much any eighth inch drive. I tend to use these guys to hold the bit in the drill, just personal preference. You can use a screwdriver, so basically any standard screwdriver, and that's a PH2 bit. Next, what I would also recommend is either a ratchet, or if you're going to be using a drill, this would be what's known as a 3/8 inch drive. Or sorry, 3/8 inch drive. So basically this plugs into any socket head, that way you can end up doing it nice and snug and then go over it with a wrench afterwards. And last but not least, you don't necessarily need every Allen key in this kit. Honestly, I only use 3 out of the entire kit. If you can find one of these, I haven't found any place that actually retails them. I got this through my job. Basically there's a 6, there's a 5, and 4. These are all metric, as every single bike that you'll find has metric parts. I'm sorry Americans, but even American bikes, Huffy is an American brand sold at Walmart. They even use metric sizes. So anyways, let's head over. So one thing we're going to be checking is brakes. Brakes are very important. Obviously you want to be able to stop and have as little movement to apply pressure. As you can see, I have a lot of movement in these brakes, and they're not engaging. It's actually pretty bad. So I'm going to teach you how to adjust them, and also what to look out for. So over here, we have what's known as the V brakes. Identified by, of course, we have the bracket over here, and then the 2 arms. I know you can't really see it too much in the video, but also on the bottom, there's 2 screws on the side. These guys are always going to be the PH2 that I just showed you. Make sure you really have that tool, whether it be a screwdriver, or as I personally prefer to use, a drill. Now this one has the PH2 in there already. So basically, to make a minor adjustment, there's going to be actually a few steps. So first off, you want to make sure you check the brake, see how well it rubs. If there's any rubbing from first view. Next, you're going to want to take a 10 millimeter socket, wrench, what have you. Like I said, it is a 10 millimeter. I have a tri-tool, so basically it looks like this. 10, 9, and 8 millimeters. 8, honestly, I don't really find too useful. I rarely ever use it. But to adjust your brake, quite simply, loosen this guy off. Take your finger, move it along like so. So pinch it after you've loosened that bolt. Pull the string through, making sure that it's nice and snug. Now keep in mind, you just basically want to go until you stop. You obviously don't want to break the brake. Now next thing we're going to check. Now personally I tend to do this upside down. especially the front brakes, because it's much easier that way. You can check if there's any rubbing, or if you need to do what's known as a wheel true. So we're just going to check right now if there's any rubbing. Hear that sound? That would be the brake rubbing against one of the rims. So either you set it too tight, or there's not enough tension on the spring. So that's where these screws over here on the sides, these are what I call the spring loader screws. Basically, the more tension you apply, and of course the more it's going to pull on that brake, pull it back. And of course the less tension, it's going to allow it to move and wobble. Obviously you don't want to put too much tension or too little tension. It kind of varies on the bike. You kind of have to play around with it. So we're checking the other side. Both sides are rubbing, so that generally means that I set it too tight. So you take your 10 mil and loosen it off a little. So we can still see it's a little bit rubbing on one side. Actually, you know what? So as you can see, it's still rubbing a little bit, and it drips over there. So that generally means one of two things. It needs a wheel true, which is a bit more of an advanced repair, or the spring loader just has to be tightened up a little bit. So let's try the spring loader first and see if I fix the problem. Okay, you might need to do a couple more tweaking, loosen the screw up a little bit, so that's this guy over here, just to basically make sure your brake works. But anyways, you should be able to turn it with relative ease, not hearing any rubbing against it, except on minor parts. That's usually just adjusting the spring loader. So for example, on my left side, I have to adjust that. Just push it in a little bit. See, that's perfect. And also check your handle. Like I said, check your handle. Make sure that you have a lot of grip and the wheel doesn't spin. You end up having it about half pressure. I generally actually set this a little bit high, but it's still relatively good because the wheel's able to spin without any resistance from the brakes. That's generally what you want. It doesn't have to be 50%, it doesn't have to be 75%. Preferably you want to have 50% pressure. That way you can obviously come to a nice stop. Generally the purpose of this video is to give guys, and I guess also women as well, some basic knowledge about how to fine-tune their bikes, making sure everything works properly. This is just a little teaser to basically make sure that, well, of course you know how to adjust everything. Anyways, men especially, if women don't find you handsome, at least they'll find you handy. Anyways, this is Tools of the Trade. See you again soon.